How did you respond when you first saw those reports?
It was really 2017 when the New York Times came out with the story where they basically, a whistleblower had given them the FLIR footage of the Tic Tacs, and that were moving anti-ballistically through the air against 120 mile an hour headwinds and doing things that were impossible for any conventional aircraft.
So it's very difficult in the actual air, right? It's very difficult in the actual winds to be, like he's explaining, to be standing still. So if this is an aircraft, let's just take this part. Let's forget about that. Erase this shit that I just did. Let's take a better version of this. So this is a UFO. And it's doing this shit, right? It's doing this. And it's actually standing still, stationary, while the wind is huge. So let's compare this to any other aircraft or helicopter. It's impossible for them to stand perfectly still and also do this, or just perfectly still. It's impossible. Why? Because the wind is too strong. 120 miles per hour is a very strong wind. And what he's explaining is our planes and helicopters can't rotate like this. Stationary or not, it's impossible. Why? Because if you're trying to maintain, a positive lift, which allows the airplane to move through the air, right? You have to maintain with the airplane a certain position. And they're not doing this. So their wings are actually not doing what they're supposed to be doing, if you ask our physicists, right? So there's even no propulsion, visible propulsion. And how are they remaining in the air? That's the question here, right? Let's continue with Stephen's testimony.
To fly, and that's where, for me, all the reports and all the UFO flaps in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, and the 80s, from Roswell in 1947 to the alleged abduction of Betty and Barney Hill in the 1950s, and to the Pascagoula incident, and to then the aerial school in Zimbabwe. That
I'm just going to pause here because it's really important. So what he explains here very, briefly is that John Mack from Yale, very, very important guy, went to Zimbabwe where I think 60 or more children, we're talking about, I think it was 93, 94 in Zimbabwe, about 60 or more children experience, basically UFOs landing, and small creatures, alien-like creatures, come out and they talk to these children telepathically, and the connection is not just very strong, but they're not frightened. So they have a sort of positive experience, and James Fox's documentary, which I really recommend, shows this now old experiencers that are no more children, of course, they're adults, and they are drawing the same pictures, they're saying the same stuff, and it's basically that these alien creatures from outer space, potentially, explain to them that we should be treating our planet differently. We should be more kind to the planet, we should be more kind to each other. Overall, a very positive message. I will let Stephen continue. Really important stuff.
John Mack from Yale did extensive interviews and research about, and all the documentaries that have been made, and suddenly Congress is talking about it, and senators are asking questions, and there are the subcommittees are being convened, and in 2023, it was the House Intelligence Committee had hearings where they interviewed Grush, Fravor, and Graves, who were basically blowing the whistle on things they knew that they thought it was time to speak under oath to both Congress and the American people.
Very briefly, you should check these testimonies out. Grush is coming out again, saying, we should push the disclosure quicker. I think there's a documentary of his coming up. Fravor maintained, he was a pilot, maintained this sort of positive disclosure push. I would say in my book he's not, he's a believer in UFOs, but he's on the very cautious side. I think Grush is more of a, because of his extensive research and, the contact that he has made with all these people who had these experiences, his understanding, his belief, let's say feeling, is that there's a lot of stuff going on. And that, of course, he has more information than Fravor. And then there's Elizondo and other people who know even more. And I would like you to observe these people, because they're telling us, first, this is very real what's going on. So we have UFOs, we have other races in our airspace, races from elsewhere, either underwater, inside Earth, or from other planets and so forth. And you can see on their faces through time, in their demeanor, that they're actually starting to believe this shit more and more. And it takes time. And if you look at Steven Spielberg, he's saying that when he started filming 50 years ago about aliens, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, he was already a believer. Very important shit. So please, let's continue.
And that really turned everything on its head.
So there was no epiphany for you necessarily, I believe. It was maybe an ongoing kind of revelation.
Yeah, look, I've been a believer since I made Close Encounters 50 years ago. I wouldn't call that science fiction, I called it science speculation. And when I did press on Close Encounters, I refused to call it science fiction.
And we're still here, ladies and gentlemen. Now, he's really pushing his movie that comes out on the 12th of June, which is, 1 week from now. And he's pushing what I think, through my experiences, is the most important topic, which is not just, let's talk about this, but also empathy, right? Empathy and sort of, I would say, channeling your inner guidance. He uses other words, but this is where we are at. How do you believe anything, really? Why is Steven a believer? Why am I a believer? I had my own experiences, and they leave me with zero doubt. And there are quite a few people, including Zimbabwe, if you look at the James Fox's documentary, that had these experiences, and they can't help but believe. So that's very important. And what I would like to point out, the Tic Tac UFO Nimitz incident, very famous. Also documentaries are free on the YouTube. I recommend those highly. The Tic Tac was showing signs of communication. That's what Elizondo explains, and everybody else, including Kevin Day, who was in charge of the operating room, battle group readiness, everything, the whole battle scenario was his job. So Tic Tac actively blocks radar first, sign of intelligence and communication. Secondly, Tic Tac knows where the cap point of their exercise is, and it goes in less than 2 seconds, like 50 or 60 miles, something like that, from where they encounter the Tic Tac UFO. What's the guy's name? Anyway, the Tic Tac goes from that point where they encounter him, the 2 pilots that were on 60 Minutes, and it goes to the cap point. The cap point was secret, so the UFO couldn't have known this. If you ask our security, military guys and ladies, but the UFO somehow knew this, where to go. Another sign of intelligence and communication. Very important. Let's continue.
But I was certainly a believer of life elsewhere, but I would always say, until I see a UAP or a UFO with my own eyes, I'm not going to categorically state that there's proof that there's life from out there has come here. But I have changed that, because I'm now willing to change my mind because of the circumstantial evidence, which is overwhelming.
There's a great deal in this movie about faith and
Yes,
and
a lot of it, because that's what it would shake up.
There's a lot of new evidence. He's being very careful, but still he's doing the push. Faith will be shaken up for sure, what we believe in. And I have to say, for me personally, I started to believe in God. I started, more. I started to believe with each occurrence, with each event, I believed more deeply that other races are, or at least one of them, is making contact with me personally. And I did more and more channeling. That was precognition stuff. So I actually got information in advance for the future events. This is real. I know it's hard to, if you don't have these experiences, it's hard to maybe imagine this, but it's very real for me. Not only that did it happen, but it was at the moment that I got the information, it was for me an unbelievable scenario. So it wasn't like something that I was envisioning, oh, maybe this will happen. No, totally out of my scope of potentials. And it did happen. And it was shown to me prior, many years or many months or many days or minutes. And then later this stuff did happen. And I'm talking about big stuff, life-changing events and shit like that. So, let's go back to the Steven Disclosure Day. I want to watch that movie, don't you?
And I my impression is that your faith in filmmaking is as strong as ever, despite the concerns people have.
Yeah, he explains here that people are actually, coming back to the theaters, which is important. But, he explains something that's important to me as well, that some stuff is meant to be experienced together, which means when we are in a theater, we experience the story together, the ups and downs, the lows, the ins and outs, the drama, the positive effects, and so forth. And that is important. I agree there with him.
At grieving together in a form of communion. And I thought it would be a more healthy experience to see Hamnet in a movie theater than on a streaming platform.
I think people will say the same about Disclosure Day. He said that for a guy who's always extremely engaged, you were engaged in a way on this that he had never seen you before. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, I would never let David sleep on this thing.
What they explain here is that Steven Spielberg was very engaged on this film. So, as a Hollywood insider, which he of course is, and he's been doing this for many, many years, like he said, 50 years. He did excellent work with E.T. the Extraterrestrial that everybody, I think, watched. Many other movies as well. And the way he's doing this movie now is he wants us to talk about this. He wants us to really take the possibility that we are not alone and that they are already among us. Very fucking seriously, ladies and gentlemen. And I am totally on board because that's my experience already. So I'm here to tell you that I'm having these experiences and I've had them for many, many years. And he's just confirming this shit. Everybody's confirming the same thing. It's happening. Check out Bashar, check out Abraham Hicks. They are channeling very good messages. Check that shit out. And let's go with a few final messages, which I think is this.
In this movie about faith and
Yes,
and
a lot of it, because that's what it would shake up.
We're shaking up faith, ladies and gentlemen. when you're talking to yourself, have faith that you will come out of this process a better man or woman. When I say that, I mean, it's very interesting and very maybe, let's say, difficult to understand that we are not the top predatory species, but there are much more advanced civilizations around us that have access to us and, they're here. This is what I think a moment of pure faith, because for me, because the change is instantaneous. And I think we need, let's say, hope and also some time to digest everything. But at the initial position, faith is something that brings us over the edge. Because most of us don't want to think about that something vastly superior is here. And we are basically at, whatever they want to do, they can do. And this is what they're explaining to us. Everybody, including all the whistleblowers that were in front of the Congress, are explaining this in their own way. The message is very clear. We have to deal with the fact that we are not alone in the universe and we are not alone on planet Earth, and the communication has begun. I have experienced this. Bashar, Abraham Hicks, many others all over the world are experiencing this in many different ways. And this, I believe, is their way. So the ways of these advanced alien races. How do you get a planet and all the inhabitants to evolve their consciousness, right? Their connection with true self, higher self, God, the whole universe, and to everybody else. So stop being scared and actually go out and see the movie. Thank you for much. Thank you for much. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, you fuckers. Let's go.
And I my impression is that your faith in filmmaking